Hello, hello, hello. This is Jake Symbol ASMR. Today I am going to do a whispered ramble, and I thought I would try out something new because I know that most of you enjoy the spooky stuff. So this will be a whispered ramble, and I will make it about a spooky topic, which is my nightmares and possible paranormal experiences from my past. As well, I want to tell a few very spooky experiences that friends of mine have had. These are always conversations I love to have with people. I love sharing these things. It's different from listening to a creepypasta, but it is really satisfying to just hear what people have experienced. Oh, and I forgot to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. Happy Pride. And this is my celebration because I think ghosts are pretty gay. Before I start, I just want to remind everyone, if you are not subscribed, please subscribe. I do a lot of spooky stuff. So, my story begins from when I was a teenager. When I was about 15, I started experiencing scary things in my house that I hadn't experienced before. I think the first scary thing that I experienced was I was sleeping. This was in the morning on a weekend, and I was home alone. And my mom was out of the house, and it was that time soon before you're gonna wake up for good in the morning. And I was having a strange kind of eerie dream. I wouldn't call it a nightmare, but I was walking around the halls with my 8th grade English teacher, and he was very quiet, and he had sort of a negative mood about him. He wasn't talking much, and he seemed to be in a bad mood. And he was we were walking through what looked like something like my high school, but it was sort of just gloomy and gray, almost black and white, but not really. And we were just walking through the halls, and it was no windows or anything, like we were on some business, like he was bringing me somewhere, but we never ended up anywhere. And then suddenly everything went black, and I heard this terrible demonic voice, like a very guttural, like metal, metal music lyrics, say this. Oh, first, before the voice spoke, I heard another voice that was sort of like a gym teacher, like male voice, and it said, "Listen carefully, please," like announcing it like it was class. And then, I'll call it the demon, I suppose, spoke in its growly, guttural voice, and it said, "I've been watching you very closely." And I was aware it was addressing me. It was talking right to me. And I was aware that the dream was over and I was being addressed, and I was scared, and I didn't want to have the conversation, so I woke up immediately. I wished that I knew what it wanted to say about me or say to me. It sounded almost disciplinary, like it was going to lay down some judgment. That was just my feeling. And I have to confess, I knew and thought a lot about ghosts and demons and paranormal presences because I have an aunt, Joyce, who is very into those things. And so I'm not someone who lives operating on the belief that these things are real, but I still think about them and pay attention. And sure, it could all just be in my psyche. Nonetheless, I like to think, what if this is real? And even if not, what is my brain telling me? So, my aunt had told me about the concept of spirits, ghosts, demons, etc. attaching themselves to people. Attachment, where they follow people around, they become attached, and whatever the situation is, whatever they're thinking or feeling, you are their person, or maybe one of their people. And I thought, okay, I've never seen anything particularly ghostly in my house that I had been living in my whole life. So my speculation was a demon had attached to me. Well, over the next few years, as I lived in that house before I went off to college, I began having other experiences, and I can't tell you exactly what order they happened in, but the next few nightmares / possible encounters, phenomena, etc. happened in my junior and senior year of high school when I was 16 and 17. Now, this next dream, I don't remember if this came before the other things I'm going to tell you, but it's very significant, so I'm going to tell you. We had, my house was one floor with an unfinished basement. My house was almost like a modular home. It wasn't technically a modular home, but it had that rectangle shape. And beneath my house was a basement which covered the exact amount of area that there was on the first floor. It was unfinished, and of course, as unfinished basements were, it was spooky. You could see the exposed insulation on the ceiling. There were poles, beams. Our laundry machines were down there, and my stepdad had built. So you go down the stairs, you look left, and my stepdad had built shelves along the wall here, and then in the middle of the room, another row of shelves. So there was like two kind of corridors, and in the right one, we had an extra fridge at the end against the wall, and next to that, we had a deep freezer. A deep freezer. And this was beneath a window. So in this next dream, this was one of those dreams that is like real life. It's no dreamscape, no embellishment. This next dream, I simply am near the end of my stairs going down into the basement, and it is the middle of the night. It's dark, and I step down to the end, and I look to the left, and sitting on my deep freezer is a man, and he's kind of glaring at me. He seems disgruntled, he seems annoyed, he seems fed up, and he seems a little bit hateful. Now, this was not an intense, hateful glare. This was more of a disgruntled, sort of like that, and he's just sitting there with his hands at his side, just looking at me. And I just knew he was there, and I wasn't super scared. I was more a little bit like, okay, what did I do wrong? You don't like me. I was just like, this guy does not like me. And that was pretty much the whole dream. So, I thought, this might be that person that was talking to me in my first dream, the one watching me. Now I have another random dream. My mom and dad were never married. They broke up during my mom's pregnancy. I'm my mom's only child, and so I would go to my dad's house every other weekend, and my dad is kind of a hermit. Not really, but he always gets these houses in the woods and in rural areas. And at this time, he had a house in rural Michigan. And it was literally made of logs, like you could see the logs, so it was always setting and creaking, and I would sleep in the living room on his couch, and it was mostly an open plan house. It was, you come in, there's the kitchen, the living room, there's some stairs going up to a loft where he kept some beds. In fact, I was a scaredy cat, always thinking about ghosts, and for some reason I did not want to sleep on that loft up there. I think it was just too much of the room was concealed, and I felt backed into a corner because there was the stairs and then just the loft. I don't know. So I was on the couch, and he had a basement, and of course I'm laying there middle of the night, house creaking, whatever, and it's dark, and nothing but the moonlight from outside. This is fields, this is the sticks, and I'm just afraid of staircases, okay? Something could come out. So I'm not ruling out again that I have an overactive imagination, but I'm about to wake up, and it's the middle of the night, and I'm like in that kind of 3/4 asleep where it's darkness, I'm just having thoughts. And I was having sentences and phrases pop into my head, and one of the phrases was Kein, Kein. I knew how it was spelled. His actions are such that children have lost their self-worth. Very creepy sentence. And then I woke up, and I don't remember, I was hearing the creaking, and I just, for some reason, I placed the presence in my mind of something on the staircase to the basement, which, again, I'm just afraid of basement staircases. So, Kein. Now the weird thing, what made this feel like more than just imagination, was that I looked up the word Kein, and it is German for nothing, or I believe none. If you speak German, leave a comment, correct me if I'm wrong. And that was just weird that I don't remember ever having heard that word or been taught that word. My stepdad did speak German, but he never taught any of it to me, and I know he didn't teach me the word Kein, and he didn't speak. I never heard him speak enough of it. I really didn't hear him speak it much. He's from Switzerland. Anyway, that's just another thing, was that, assuming the paranormal is real, was that the presence that followed, that I saw in my basement, that spoke to me, or was that something that lived in my dad's house? And I thought, and I wonder, is Kein, he must have chosen the name Kein, whether demon or ghost or what have you, but very dark that this being chose the word Kein, because that's a dark word, nothingness, clearly not a very positive-minded person slash being. Now, here's a string of nightmares and things that I began experiencing in my home. So, I began having nightmares, and they were just like my dream of the man in my basement. They were real, like exact layout of my house, no dream embellishment, nothing. And I have to mention I would sleep in the spare room a lot of nights because the bed in my room was elevated, and I began becoming afraid of my house, and I thought the spare room seemed safer because it was a normal queen-size bed. And the first dream I remember was I was in my hallway, and there's a kitchen, or not a kitchen, there's a bathroom. Our bathroom was right there. It's a small thing, walk in, sink, toilet, shower, adjacent to one another. And I walk in my bathroom, and there's a dead woman on the floor, but there's this weird quality to it where it's almost holographic, like it seemed like some image of a dead woman projected on the floor, but there's also blood in the bathtub and other places. And it was like, okay, there's an actual murder scene, but not a real thing. And I don't know what to make of that, because it was otherwise my exact bathroom. I had another dream where we had a front door. We had our living room, and then our front door was there, and it was just a small space. Right across the front door was like a closet that we hung coats in. And I had a dream. It was daytime, sort of overcast. I was alone in the house, and I just walked from the middle of my living room, opened the coat closet door, went in, and stood parallel to the coats, and I sort of think I might have hung myself up like a coat. It was weird. And I shut the door, and I had this vague sense that I was hiding from something or someone, or that I was just hiding myself in some way. And I looked, and it was just quiet, normal. I'm home alone, all the electronics are off, whatever. I don't know, I wasn't scared, but I was like, it was sort of like, I better get in here and make myself sparse, or scarce, that's the word. Now, another dream I had, it was daytime, just like in the last one, again in my actual house, and I was in the kitchen. And I was standing in the kitchen, and I was just kind of hanging out, like I sometimes do, probably checking for food in the fridge, or considering eating something, and I saw this. It was like a four-legged spider. It was weird, like it had four legs, and it was gray. The legs were straight, and it had these glowing orange eyes, two of them, lifeless, fully orange, not glowing, but a bright orange. And I just felt this sense that it was looking at me and judging me, and I start looking around, and there's more of them, and they're everywhere, and they've all got this same feeling about them, that are just looking at me, judging me, very much like the man in my basement did in my dream. But these ones felt more otherworldly because obviously they weren't human. Very weird. And then I had one of the weirdest nightmares I've ever had. I just connected to this because it involved an insect, but I was in the back seat of a car, and there was a little girl in there with me, and this one is a little weird. This one is very creepy because it just has weird connotations, but there was like a fly, and the fly was talking to me, like it was talking right into my head, and I don't remember what it said, but it was very dark, malicious, like it was taunting me, or it was like asserting its dominance. There was a fly, and I remember something about the fly going up her she was wearing a dress, it was going up her dress, or crawling up her thigh, or crawling down her thigh, or back out. Very obviously, I don't have to explain, dark. I hate it. But that was like, I really felt that fly's presence. So a theme of all of these is these presences judging and watching and taunting me. Now, I had more of those realistic nightmares in my house where it's in most of them it was the middle of the night, and I was in my kitchen. I remember, I think I had one of the typical ones where your teeth are falling out, but we had a sink and then a window over the sink into the darkness, and there was a deck that my stepdad built a couple years prior. And I was looking out that window. I don't remember what else, but I was just looking out that window, and then my teeth were falling out, which is, tooth falling out dreams are very common, I know. I need to refresh myself on the supposed meaning of those dreams that psychic dream interpreters use. But in summary, if I remember any more of those dreams in detail, I will bring them up. But in summary, periodically I would have one of those dreams. Also, starting around this time, lying in bed, regularly throughout the night, I would hear footsteps going down the stairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I would lay in bed. Now, we had noises that happened in our walls because of wind and settling and perhaps squirrels and stuff. We would have creaking and, that was, and I was like, whatever, we know what that is. And there was sort of like always like ambient noise from the basement, like the water flowing and through pipes, and I think like air, I don't know, but this did not sound like creaking, and I don't remember ever having heard this before, but I'd be laying in bed, and regularly it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It would be like someone near the top of the stairs walking down to the bottom. I don't know. Oh, and for context on my house, my mom had it built when when I was a baby. She had it built so we could live in it. It was just me and my mom. So this was not an old house that no one had lived here prior to us. So, and I also want to clarify, the man in our basement, as far as I could tell, was a white man, and he had like sort of like neck length, like down to here, like longish dark hair, and he looked very tired. He had like bags under his eyes, but he was a human, like he was not like zombie-like or anything. Okay, so all that was going on, and then my best friend Tyler would stay the night pretty frequently. Like we were best friends, and he slept in our spare room when he stayed the night, and he had one of those realistic nightmares, and I hadn't told him about it, but he was, I think, in the spare room, and he came out into the hallway, or in the kitchen, I think, maybe getting a glass of water, and he went to like the hallway or bathroom, and he looked down, and his fingers were messed up. Like, he says that they were like spoon shaped, like they were really disgustingly skinny and then like big at the end, and he was just horrified. And then he woke up, but it was the same pattern as with my nightmares, where you're in one part of the house, it's realistic, it's quiet, you walk to another part of the house and something strange happens and you wake up. I had some other weird experiences. I remember one night in the middle of the night, I woke up, and like I said, I had a loft bed, So there was like my like desk and TV were under my bed. It was just more space efficient in my room. And there was like a dead hand just laying there next to me over the edge of the bed. And I looked at it and it just slid off and was gone. And I was too scared to go under my bed. And I had this repeated feeling of discomfort, obviously, but familiarity with this thing, with these things. I don't know, it was like an instinctive feeling of familiarity. So I didn't feel like I was about to get attacked or anything when I saw things like this. I still was very scared, of course, but I saw that. And I mean, I at least had the sensation of being awake, you know? I'm sure it's easy to have sort of hallucinations, like with sleep paralysis and stuff. Also, random, but I have experienced sleep paralysis. Usually it's not weird stuff, but I don't remember experiencing sleep paralysis while during this period of a few years. Yeah, so that's, and then one story, there were other things like this, but I don't quite remember, but one weird story is I would sleep on my couch some nights because I could have the TV on with the cable, and I was sleeping and I would put on like TBS or Comedy Central, you know, like funny shows that feel uplifting so I'm not so scared. And I had that on, I fell asleep, I woke up and this channel was on and it was like a chamber jazz band playing this downbeat, like eerie with a lot of low pitch horns, like da 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 da, and it was like black and white, not quite black and white, but like very muted green colors, like there was very little like color in things. And I was like, who changed the channel here? And just the fact it was an actual like thing on the TV, I had no idea, what is this? Who watches this? Like maybe you're a music fan. It wasn't on one of the like weird music channels, it was on an actual channel. And I was like, this is eerie in the middle of the night. And I'm sure I could have woken up and chose the channel, but just the coincidence that it was that it was something just creepy and gloomy like that creeped me out. And I just think like I was being messed with, like let's put on something spooky and for him to wake up to and feel weird about. So those are my paranormal experiences in that house. I actually texted my aunt yesterday to ask, like, do spirits or demons or whatever, if you have one attached to you, do they influence your dreams? And she said, yes, definitely. Especially because when you're sleeping, you're in a susceptible state and you're open. I don't want to say vulnerable because they're not trying to hurt you, they're just communicating, or their energy is mixing with you or whatever. But she said she'll text me after work for more details, but she said definitely they affect your dreams. Now I just feel like there might have been negative energy in my house because my mom and stepdad, their relationship was declining and they did go through a divorce and he moved out. And in fact, most of this happened after he moved out when I turned 16. And again, it could have been my mind because that was a lot of stress. All compassion to both of them. He was going through a lot and his emotional state was declining. It makes me wonder, in consideration with the paranormal, was this ghost having a negative influence on him because he was doing weird things? He would literally, we had a spare room with a bed, and instead of sleeping with my mom, he would literally go in the basement and sleep on the floor. I'm not kidding you, cement or concrete floor. Like, I was like, come on, would never do that. I don't care how bad I felt about, I don't care how guilty I felt. It was just weird, and I wonder, was he somehow communing with the man in the basement, the thing I thought was attached to me, or living down there? Okay, I think that's about all I have to say about that. But other random things. Shadow people. If you're into ghosts, you probably know about shadow people. My Aunt Joyce says that she lived in my grandma's house for a long time, so I would see her when I went to my grandma's house, and she would babysit me a lot. But she said that my great uncle Donnie, who passed away, I think when I was a kid or shortly before I was born, walked into her room and stood by her bed, and she has thoughts about Uncle Donnie as a person. She doesn't think he was a very good person. Well, I don't want to say she doesn't think that. She thinks that he had problems, and I think that probably he did. Whatever. That's no insult to him or my grandma or anyone in the family. We all have problems, but she thinks that that sort of energy drew him to want to communicate with her in some day, but she was very scared, and somehow she knew that this shadow man standing by her bed was my Uncle Donnie. I want to tell one random story. I have to get off soon, but this is just a great one. My friend, when I was 19, I had a friend named Matt. He was my friend Sandra's boyfriend, and it was a thunderstorm with a tornado watch, and we were at my friend Jamie's house, so we all went in her bathroom. Oh, and the power went out, and we lit candles, bathroom for tornado safety, and we started telling our stories. Well, Matt told this one. He said that one night he was hanging out with his brother in their house. You know, they hung out, and then they had to sleep in the same bed together, because I don't think that Matthew's brother was like living with them, or maybe Matt wasn't, but they were sleeping in the same bed, and they were going to bed, and Matt was drifting off, and he says, my brother kept yip-yapping, and I was like, yip-yapping, you know, just like talking, and Matt wanted to go to sleep, and he was like, he kept drifting off, and his brother kept yip-yapping in his words, and he was finally like, hey, I want to go to sleep, could you be quiet? And he like comes fully awake, and he looks at his brother, and his brother's like asleep, and his brother's like, what are you talking about? I wasn't, saying anything. And the yip-yapping stopped, and he and his brother looked at the closet, and they saw this pair of red eyes, this glowing red eyes, just looking for a few seconds, and then they disappeared, and the door was closed, he says. And I asked, what was your brother saying? What was he talking about? And Matt was just like, yip-yapping, like he was just, talking. I don't know why, but the phrase yip-yapping, it was so creepy to me, because I wouldn't assume that of a presence like that, just talking conversationally. It's almost a little bit trickstery, I don't know. Yip-yapping. Anyway, I have to end this ramble. I just wanted to try this out. So, please let me know in the comments what you thought of this. Did you like it? Did this do for you what the spooky stories do? I can dig through mine or my friend's stories and see if I have any good ones to tell in the future. I already can think of some, unfortunately. My time is running short. Please subscribe if you like this. There's more to come. And please, leave a like, comment, and if you really love me, turn on notifications. I upload about once a week. so much. I hope you have enjoyed this ASMR